Welcome back, you guys, to another episode of the Blaine and Katey Weekly Update. If you're new here, we share our favorite Japan travel YouTubers, Japanese culture, and news.
And give you our favorite things from throughout the week. Sorry about missing last week. Sometimes life just gets in the way. Because of that, we have the playlist that we were going to talk about in the description below. So check it out to see what interested us last week. Things such as
a really cool cafe giving people with ALS work.
A tour of Don Quixote that didn't end up in Sam and Audrey getting thrown out.
Kathy Cat getting tied up.
An interesting discussion on the difference between living in Japan versus visiting Japan.
And there's so much more from 2 weeks ago. But let's focus on this week.
Let's get to it.
Let's jump right in.
Our first video this week, we had LaWiff, or Life Where I'm From, showing us what it's like when the Japanese go camping. A little bit different than when we've been camping before. I know my family always would go camping every year, and it was very much so the rustic. We've got tents, wood fires, and that's how we're cooking everything.
You mean you were miserable for a week? That's what you're telling me.
I was young and I enjoyed it. I thought it was a great time.
My family had an RV, so we did not camp. Ever.
Japanese camping, though, they tend to have plenty of electricity. They had heated blankets on the floor, butane heaters, and their cooking setup was like a full decked out cooktop with a full griddle. They were making all kinds of food. They had the rice cooker plugged in. It was technically camping. They were in a tent.
Our next video is Tokyo Lens, and he went to Matsuyama this last week, and he shared some of his experiences there, which we have also been to. So he showed us Dogo Onsen, which is one of the oldest onsens of all time.
Yeah, I think it's arguably the oldest.
Fact check. It's Google time. Google time is one of the oldest.
Yeah, but what, I mean, how do we not know?
Maybe because it's over 1,000 years old.
Yeah, okay, I get
He didn't really.
One of the oldest.
It had a separate, complete space for the emperor and his family to bathe, which we got to take a tour of and explore for ourselves and see a toilet that had never been used. Tokyo Lens also visited Matsuyama Castle, which is really interesting because it was set upon a mountain, and they explain why in the video, so you should definitely go check it out to find out why.
Then for anyone interested in traveling to Japan, Only in Japan Go, John Daub told us all about the sayonara tax. This is a 1,000 yen tax that's going to be tacked on to your plane ticket anytime you're leaving the country for tourism purposes. And he goes into some more explanation as to what actually they're charging you for. He explains that, of course, with the 2020 Olympics coming up, the government's trying to get as much revenue as possible to pay for all of their upgrades. And there's a number of other tourist-related things that they want to help pay for over the next couple years.
And next we have Paolo from Tokyo, who got married to Michael. Congratulations, you guys! Super exciting. It's really interesting to see the Japanese legal process and some of the minor differences in marriage culture. Like, for instance, in America, we give gifts to the bride and groom, but in Japan, it seems that they just give money. So check out their video for more information on that.
And now it's time for the lightning round.
Currently, Hannah visited Mount Nokogiri to get some really stunning footage on her Mavic Pro 2.
The Black Experience Japan gives us Christine Barnes with her experience with fat phobia in Japan.
Then Tokyo Creative visited Haneda Airport with Natsuki to see all of the amazing vending machines.
Then IU Connect interviewed foreigners to see what they thought was unusual or strange about Japan when compared to their own home countries.
Japan Guide gave us their top 5 places to visit in Kamakura.
Critical Eats Japan buys burgers from a vending machine.
And now it's time for
News in Japan.
So springboarding off John Daub's Sayonara tax video, Japan hit a record of 31.19 million tourists in 2018. And that is up 8.7% since 2017's tourism reports. The visitor count to Japan has increased threefold since 2013, when the visitor count only topped out at 10 million guests. And our first trip to Japan was in 2013 for our honeymoon, and it's just really incredible to see that Japan has increased that much in popularity in just 5 years. And I'm not supposed to give you my opinion, but it probably has to do with Japan easing up on the issuance of visas to foreigners. There's more direct routes going to and from Japan through air. Maybe that anime has become more internationally popular, like on a global scale. And Japan's just become more and more famous for its safety in our unsafe world. That's just my thought. Let us know, why do you guys think Japan has become that much more popular recently? Leave a comment down below and we'll definitely chat with you guys about it. We'd really like to know your thoughts.
This week, on the 22nd, Abe and Putin will be sitting down to discuss peace talks between Russia and Japan. That's right. There is technically a war still going on between Russia and Japan. And it's not so much that they're actually at war, really. What it is that the two countries have never signed a peace treaty since World War II. And the reason for this is about a dispute over the Kuril Islands that are just to the northeast of Hokkaido. Now this dispute is really long. We gotta go back over 100 years to really get down to the beginning of this tale. In 1855, the first Russo-Japanese agreement specifically named 3 of these islands that they're currently disputing over. And later on, the St. Petersburg Treaty specifically said that the Kuril Islands would belong to Japan. However, it didn't specifically state which islands were in the Kuril Islands. And that kind of goes down to the actual brunt of the problem here, is how there's all these treaties we're going to touch on that will specify one island, or they'll specify another one of the islands, or they'll specify the chain, but the chain is never defined as which islands fall within this chain of islands. Following these treaties and agreements, we had the Russo-Japanese War, the Japanese invasion of Manchuria, as well as World War II and all the occupations that happened therein. Once again, after World War II, the agreements about who owned what specified the Kuril Islands, but did not specify which islands are the Kuril Islands. Japan calls the 4 islands that are currently in dispute the Northern Territory, and just assumes them to be theirs, and demands that Russia give them back. In 1956, the Soviet Union agreed to split the islands with Japan, giving them 2 and keeping 2. And Japan was about to do this when the US stepped in and said, hey, if you give Russia those islands, we're gonna hold on to Okinawa. And so Japan felt forced that they would have to keep fighting to get all 4 of these islands. Shinzo Abe has said that he wants all 4 islands, and only all 4 islands. And given Russia's views on the Crimean annexation, chances are Russia is not going to want to give those up either. These islands represent a strategic location in the Pacific, and Russia has been putting submarines and jet fighters in the airspace just to kind of pressure their control over the area. And because Japan wants the islands, and Russia most likely does not want to give them up, and because they've had more and more discussions over the past decade to see who gets which islands, and they all end up in the same stalemate, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, and by the time you're watching this, they probably are already talking and we can actually know the answer. I'm just coming to you from the past, and so I'm excited to join you in the comments below to see what happened from all this.
And thanks for joining us this week, everyone. If you'd like to be in the know of what's going on in Japan every week, make sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.
And hit that notification bell.
Let us know in the comments below what you thought was important this week in Japan that we might have missed, and look forward to next week's weekly update.